in your relationships and in your life, if it's losing its spark, if it's becoming numb and stuck, if you have this pervading feeling of low self-esteem, or if you're having these chronic circular arguments that you just can't seem to resolve, you are probably dealing with some withholds. Withholds is one of the essential areas we must approach as we're growing and evolving, but it can be one of the most difficult because it requires us to start telling the truth and feeling our feelings and going into the discomfort of authenticity to let it unfold. I'm going to break it down and try to make it easy to understand and easy to approach so that we can start working with this idea and start unwrapping the numbness, the lost vitality, and the lost trust that we have in our relationships. So what is a withhold? A withhold is whenever we are withholding some form of our self-expression and authenticity. If we're withholding speaking up, taking action, asking for what we want, sharing our feelings, freely moving our body, in other words, walking on eggshells, we've got withholds. If we're experiencing incomplete interactions, like we're walking away and not feeling heard or respected, or we feel small or disconnected from the other person, like, ooh, that didn't feel good at all, or powerless, then we've got a withhold that's happening in the space. Some piece of truth is not being told. This does not include socially appropriate self-control when we choose it. That's when we control our actions and our words because we are fitting in harmony with a social situation that we find ourselves in, and there's no charge to it. If there's a charge to it, it's probably got some kind of withhold. If it doesn't have a charge, you're just using mature self-control. So here are some examples of relationship withholds. When we let emotionally uncomfortable situations and circumstances go unaddressed and unresolved. This often happens because we don't want to talk about it, and we probably don't want to talk about it because we don't have the skill to unwind this highly charged situation. We often in relationship with partners or family or friends have a lack of examination, mutual understanding, even if we disagree, and then agreements around parenting, lifestyle, spirituality, politics, and then the two hardest one is money and sex. You've got to have examination and mutual understanding, even if you disagree about the topic, and then form agreements around it so that each person can be understood and know where you stand in relationship to these items that are causing friction in your life. When we're taking action behind someone's back, these are other forms of withhold. We're spending money that we're not telling, that we're hiding, that we're not telling someone about. We have exclusive conversations. We'll have a conversation with this person over here, but we won't have that conversation with the loved one involved. And if we can't say the same things to two different people, we have withholds with with the person we can't speak to, and that causes a lack of trust, a lack of creates tension, and creates a withhold, and creates a rift in the relationship. No matter how subtle it is, if we can't be ourselves with that person, a rift starts to form. One key area of relationships is making requests. Again, examining and finding mutual agreement, mutual understanding and agreements about requests with domestic life, cooking, childcare. Often we get in relationships and we just have all these assumptions that everyone operates the same way I do. This is just common sense, isn't it? Everybody knows how to clean the kitchen, or you don't leave your dishes in the sink, or what have you. Also, it's not everyone communicates and resolves conflicts differently. So if we're having open-hearted conversations and trying to have conflict resolution, and those things aren't happening, we're not able to make the request for it, we need to seek out the skill in order to navigate those areas, or they just kill the relationship. One specific area I want to touch on here is love, touch, intimacy, and sexual requests. There are a lot of assumptions made about this because it's so uncomfortable to just be honest about our intimacy and our sexuality. There's this great book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, And he outlines these 5 different categories of the way people give and receive love that works best for them, that they respond most to. So these are gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, also called devotion, and physical touch, which is intimacy. So for example, let's say that your love language is quality time and touch, and your partner's is gifts. Well, you may be receiving gifts from this person, and that may be their way that they have learned and that pushes their button to give and receive love. We often give what we want to receive. So they're giving you gifts thinking they're doing these great things for you, and while you appreciate the gifts, you are not getting the love, the intimacy and the touch that you're wanting and the quality time. And if you don't even know that this is a thing, you don't even know to make the request and say, hey, I really appreciate those gifts, but my love language is quality time and touch. Would you be willing to spend more time working on that with me and saving some money on those gifts? And if gifts is your love language, then maybe I'll be more attentive to thinking about a gift that would be really touching to you and really meaningful. And so there, if you don't have that conversation, you just miss each other. And then it creates this quiet kind of lack of communication that just starts to push down the vitality of the relationship over time. Work withholds. If you're withholding your ideas, if you have alternate solutions to promote and you don't, or if you just disagree with a policy or a course of action and you don't speak up, you're not going to feel vitality for your job. It's going to kill all that. If you're withholding your assertiveness with your staff, if you're not asking for performance and deadlines from your team with some form of assertion but kindness, then you've got withholds with your team. If you're saying yes to your boss when you really want to say no, that's going to create tension. If you want to ask for a raise but you don't, if you have a conflict going on and you need HR support and you don't go ask for that, then that conflict is just going to make going to work miserable, and it's going to kill your love for your job. And a few personal points: if you keep going to a job that you hate, that's a withhold to yourself. If you stay in a relationship that's not healthy, that's a withhold with yourself. If you withhold your creative expression, if you're saying yes when you mean no and no when you mean yes, you're actually withholding from yourself, and that degrades your own trust and respect for yourself. So we've talked about what a withhold is. So do you have withholds? Here's some of the signs. If you have a hot relationship that's circular, repeating arguments, if you're lashing out, if you're finding fault, if you have these explosive moments, if you're judging each other and criticizing each other, you've got withhold. You're not being honest in some way. Often those kinds of relationships, if they stay together, will devolve into a cold relationship where it's just dull and quiet and you start giving each other the silent treatment. If you start hating something that you once loved, you've got withholds with that area of your life. Any area there is lost trust, respect, and vitality or aliveness, there are withholds at play, I promise. So this is a comment I took from the internet that kind of paints a picture of all that we've covered so far. Foolishly dealing with emotional withholds for 9 years, he withholds sex, affection, attention, and never makes time for us or me. He's suddenly tired when I ask him for quality couple time. When I threaten to leave, he doesn't fight to keep me. He just says he loves me, he's sorry, and he really wants this to work out between us. No real sadness or tears from him. He is emotionally cold and just talks like a robot. I want to leave so bad, but I have no money, nowhere to go, and I'm unwell now. I have no family nor friends, and frankly, I have no self-esteem left. I think about suicide all the time. I'm 46 years old and I just don't have the strength to start over again. So that's a pretty comprehensive picture of the devastating effects of withholds, which really means we're not being authentic. We don't know what our authenticity is, and we're too afraid to assert that into the world. So what are some of the effects and consequences when we withhold? How does it kill the vitality in our life? There's something called the withhold perpetration mechanism. I'm going to say that again, the withhold perpetration mechanism. And what that basically says is, if I withhold from you, I will punish you, instead of admitting my own fear and pain. Let me say that one more time. If I withhold from you, if I don't have the courage to say what I need to say or ask the questions I need to ask or make the requests I need to make, then I will punish you for that lack of courage on my part, instead of admitting my own fear and pain. And so some of the ways we do that punishment are projection. If we're angry but we don't have a way to express that or resolve that, we'll start, instead of saying, hey, I'm angry and I don't know what to do, we're going to say, why are you angry? Or why are you being distant? We're going to find the fault in the other person. Judgment. Why are you so controlling? You're mean. You're a loser. You're cold and dead inside. We will start finding fault for that person and making them wrong for some of their behaviors and characteristics, because we don't want to look at the hurt and pain that we have inside that we can't open up to and be vulnerable to. And then there's suspicion and paranoid is another version of this. If we're hiding something, then we are suspicious about, what are you hiding? Are you lying to me? What are you not telling me? If I'm not telling you something, then I'm going to be susceptible to suspicion that I'm going to be wondering, what are you not telling me? And then I'm going to start a paranoid, suspicious kind of chain effect. So the bottom line is, what I don't take care of in myself, I will take out on you. If I have withholds and I have areas that I can't approach, I will take it out on you if I don't take care of those things inside myself. And that is the key to killing trust, respect, and vitality in our life, in areas of our life, in our interests, in our pursuits, and in our romantic relationships and familiar relationships. So why do we withhold? Well, I believe that at a very basic level, we have a primal self-preservation. When in the past, if we had disapproval by authority figures or our tribe, we could be exiled, we could be killed, we could be burned at the stake. If someone in power was scared or offended by our personal self-expression, that could spell big trouble for us and a whole lot of discomfort. It was better to just withhold and get on with life. Withholding is still demonstrated in our culture today, but in a different form. We manipulate the world to get what we want. If making a certain amount of money helps us to feel a certain level of self-esteem, then we will manipulate the world to make that happen. We may cut corners, we may pollute the environment, we may not be honest when we're making sales pitches, for instance. For status, we may be pushing others down and trying to raise ourselves up so that we can attain the status we think we need to feel good about ourselves. We will sell ourselves out for stability and security. We will not be honest because we knew if we did, it may end a particular type of relationship. And the codependent part of us doesn't want to let go of that relationship. There is a pain and a hurt in us that we're trying to manipulate the world to fill. And if you have experience in addiction or you have a compulsion, and I don't know anybody who doesn't have some form of that, we are constantly trying to manipulate the world to fill that hole, which is actually unfillable. And we'll talk more about that maybe later. So here's some of the ways those emotional imprints show up. We may have a lot of fear. We may fear loss of connection, loss of control, loss of resources, and afraid to be alone. So we may be operating to cover that up and to compensate for that imprint that's in us and operating. We may feel unworthy, believe there's something basically wrong or insufficient with us. I don't deserve a great relationship. I don't deserve this money. I don't deserve this job. We may be saying those things to ourselves because of that emotional imprint and withholding our full self-expression. Shame, believing that our desires and expressions are not okay. Maybe we danced at an early age and somebody laughed at us and made fun of us, and we don't want to be seen moving in that way anymore because it brings up that pain. We may have sexual preferences or desires that have been ridiculed or shamed, and now we have that imprint, and so we operate according to that imprint. And then guilt. We may believe that we have failed or done something unforgivable, so we don't tell anybody about it. But that not telling crushes us inside and causes distance from us and the ones we love. So here's another example that kind of paints a picture now that includes the new stuff that we've just talked about. I've been married to a passive-aggressive man for the last 7 years. Withholding, along with denial, blame, resistance, and making excuses are all a part of daily life. That is, unless I keep my mouth shut and don't bring up anything uncomfortable for him, which is most topics that need to be discussed within a marriage. He grew up without a mother and was raised by, you guessed it, a very passive-aggressive father. He learned well from the master. Being motherless, he never learned how to talk to women, let alone respect, nurture, or trust them. Withholding communication, affection, empathy, commitment, and most of all, love. The more I kick and scream about it, the more he withholds. If I'm silent, then I just feel even more depressed and repressed. Yes, the emotional pain is excruciating, and the self-esteem at an all-time low. So let's break this down a little bit. This paints a picture of dysfunction and withholds from both partners. I keep my mouth shut and don't bring up anything uncomfortable for him. Well, there's some kind of fear operating there because she's not able to be herself, and she probably knows that to keep provoking that in the relationship would end it. He grew up without a mother and was raised by, you guessed it, a very passive-aggressive father. So I'm guessing that being raised by a passive-aggressive father, this father did not have authenticity and authority in him, asserting out of him in the world, and probably was shut down and numb and cold. So this man as a child grew up probably without warmth and affection, now does not have the skill to then do that for another. The more I kick and scream about it, the more he withholds. You cannot force someone to give you what they don't know how to give you, what you haven't asked for, and what they're unwilling to work on. And the more you try to force it, manipulate the world, the more you're going to cause resistance and not get what you want. You can't get blood from a stone. Yes, the emotional pain is excruciating and self-esteem is an all-time low. This is her self-esteem that's at an all-time low because she doesn't have the ability or the skill to navigate the situation and either extirpate herself from the situation or approach this man and help him to open up his heart and to grow. So we've talked about what it is, but what do you do about it? First off, if you are being moved inside and being touched somewhere by the conversation we've had so far, and it's safe to do so, I want to encourage you to cry and to feel those feelings that have been provoked by the talk that we've been having. You want to let your heart break in this cry. You want to drop out of the wallowing, drop out of your story and out of your head, and let pure feeling and grief take over and feel that and be and accompany that. There's nothing more powerful that I know of, that if feelings are arising, they're arising because they're asking to be accompanied, they're asking to be felt, they're asking to have a voice. I'm going to pause the talk on the next slide that I've chosen that maybe will help to elicit and help you to feel some of these feelings that have long been in you. Okay, if you pause the video, welcome back. I hope that you were able to touch the essence of that pain and feel a little bit of relief and clarity from touching that. And if you're not there yet, let's go talk about some more things about what to do, because this is a process. It's not a cure or a fix for anything. It is a process of learning to become more. So we need to cover some more things about what to do. The first thing I would recommend is to write a list of all of your withholds. If withholds have been provoked by listening to this talk, pause the program and write them down. Right now, this list is just for you. Don't share it so that you can have permission to fully express. Going around delivering these withholds, if that thought frightens you, that's not the point of making the list. The point of the list is to help you, to give you some perspective, and to reduce the feelings of overwhelm and helplessness. Dan Siegel has done some brain research and has shown that when we name the feelings that we're swimming in other words, if we are swimming in this numbness or the chronic arguments or the loss of spark, if we're swimming in this, when you start to name what you're feeling and name the withholds, you start to turn your full brain back on. You start to turn the cortex back on, and you come out of your lower brain systems and then have full brain capacity so that you can look at and have some perspective about your situation. It's the mid and lower brain areas that cause the fight or flight response and have a seize up and lock up so that we don't know how to get out of it. It's when we name it is when we start to loosen the grip that it has on us, and our full brain turns back on. Here's a list of things that you can use to start helping you to get some insight to some of these withholds that might be hidden from you, or they might be so ingrained that you're not even aware that you're doing them. You want to make a list of past and current hurts, fears, angers, and regrets, withheld questions, withheld requests, work or in your personal life, withheld expressions, movements, noises, ways you walk on eggshells, ways you contract your self-expression so that nobody notices you. Yes when you mean no, no when you mean yes. Where are you doing that at? I know I still do sometimes. And this goes for lovers, parents, spouses, children, friends, co-workers. All these areas of our life need to be examined of how am I withholding. How am I not telling the truth to people? How am I skewing the truth? How am I just not saying the truth at all? On the website itrustmylife.com, there's an extended list to help you to expand and get a more complete list. And the more complete list you write, the more relief you will feel from getting it out of inside of you and onto a piece of paper. So what to do after the list? Notice how you feel after making the list. Are you experiencing this space? Are you experiencing some relief? Some vitality maybe has returned from the list. And if that vitality hasn't returned, you may not have fully written down what you wanted to on that list. There may be some things that are missing from that list. Are there any next actions you're inspired to take? Now, before you turn off the video and get triggered, I'm talking about, are there any small withholds you can deliver with someone you're not in conflict with? And this could be even as simple as you go to restaurants and you really want your salad dressing on the side, but you don't ask for it because you don't want to inconvenience someone or make them mad at you or cause any conflict, so you're not speaking up for yourself. I mean something that's super, super simple that you've been withholding, but now you're going to take a chance and try to ask for it and see what happens. Navigating difficult conversations is a skill you can learn. So you may be looking at this list and saying, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to go to the next step with this. You might want to seek instruction, because it is possible to learn how to start delivering these withholds to where you're not dropping a bomb on someone, you're not creating more conflict, more controversy, but you are skillfully starting to unravel your authenticity and letting it out in the world in a socially appropriate way that creates cooperation, that creates closeness with others. It creates just a better environment for you and for others. If your situation is chronic and feels very stuck and too big to approach, then you may not want to do anything. Well, first of all, congratulations for getting this far in the video, but you may not want to do anything. This may be causing a panic attack in you. It may be causing you to lock up in some way. You want to ask yourself, okay, I see the potential. I see what's happening, that I'm having withholds and it's causing me problems, but it's too big for me. Do I need professional help to help me ease into this process so that I can start to have a more authentic life? Professional help could be super, super helpful, and there is no shame in asking for help to do something that's one of the most difficult things for human beings to do, and that is to tell the truth and feel the feelings that come when we tell those truths. Feel the feelings and the fears and the anxieties when we get out of our comfort zone to grow and become more authentic. Nothing more difficult for human beings to do that I can see. Is your need maybe not to do it on your own, but to explore with a group? Would a group be helpful? What are your resources available? Friends, groups, professionals, or spiritual guidance with clergy or rabbis, what have you. So what to expect from this process? Why do this process anyway? Well, one of the tough things is we got to let go of our expectations of what will happen. If we've been withholding, it has created a certain pattern of our life that once we start delivering those withholds, those patterns that are in place may start to shift and change. We may want to manipulate others so that we can get what we want out of them. And that's not going to work. So we got to let go of that desire to manipulate as we approach this work. You may not get what you want, but you will get what is true. An accurate reflection of your external and internal world. The truth always leads to somewhere better in the end. I've never not seen it happen where someone takes the risk and is honest, and they don't end up in a better place a week, a month, 6 months, or a year out from getting clean and getting honest with the way that they're approaching their life. It always leads to somewhere better. It doesn't look pretty in the beginning, and it doesn't look safe and secure, unfortunately. There is a risk, but if we're going to become more, there is a risk involved. There is a chance we have to take on ourselves. Withhold work can be very challenging, and it is a rite of passage to becoming more. If you are stuck in your life and you know there's more in you than you are living, chances are you have withholds of your self-expression and your truth that you are not letting out. It feels like you might become less from doing this process. It feels like you might lose something or even die. But sometimes the crisis is the cure. Sometimes it takes a crisis for us to move and to do the difficult things we need to do to become more and to evolve. And Withholds is one of those essential personal growth tools and journeys that we must undertake in order to evolve and become more. And the gift is knowing that you are worthy, knowing that you are enough, knowing that you can stand on your own 2 feet, that your feelings and needs matter, and that you can create a life that supports you and fulfills you. This is a super great saying by Lao Tzu that I think is really good to meditate on given what we've talked about so far. New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings. New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings. So the bottom line is, tell the truth, feel your feelings, and the truth will set you free. And you can learn to trust your life. To trust your life that it's bringing you the people and circumstances you need to encounter so that you can grow, so that you can become more, and you can become yourself in the world and be that self that you imagine in your mind. That image may be very, very old and very, very dim, but encountering and engaging with withhold work will start to bring that image back to life. And one day, you may see that image in the real world.